It's been more than a week since torrential rains hit South Africa's eastern coast, but the search continues for people lost in the subsequent floods. Outside the town of Umbumbulu in KwaZulu-Natal province, police officers and sniffer dogs scour the river, accompanied by community members like herdsman Mbukeni Kwela.
We are here looking for our neighbour who was swept away by the river. We are sure she was swept away by the river because we found her son's body, but we haven't found her yet.
The death toll as of Monday, after the rains triggered flooding and mudslides, is more than 440. Dozens remain missing. On Monday, the South African National Defence Force said it had been instructed to activate 10,000 troops for tasks including mop-up work and transporting aid. The floods have left thousands homeless, knocked out power and water services, and disrupted operations at one of Africa's biggest ports, Durban. The government has declared a national state of disaster.
After 3 grueling weeks out at sea, fishermen in Sri Lanka are counting up their catch on the docks of Negombo, a tight-knit fishing community on the island country's west coast. But the numbers don't look great to 44-year-old Anton Fernando, and he fears his trade will no longer earn him a living. Sri Lanka is facing its worst financial crisis since its independence in 1948, and soaring prices are piling the pressure on fishermen, from the cost of fuel for their boats down to food for their families.
For the 21 days that we've been out to sea, we've earned 40,000 rupees. This isn't enough to cover our household expenses. Even before we go home, we know this isn't enough to cover electricity and water bills, tuition fees, and food.
While fishing is less than 2% of Sri Lanka's economy, its impact is big. It employs a tenth of Sri Lanka's people and helps feed far more. At a nearby beach in Negombo's C Street neighborhood, 47-year-old fisherman G.K. Chaminda says he's struggling to pay back the loan he took out on his boat 3 years ago.
We are having real difficulties. We eat only 1 meal per day, and groceries are also very difficult to buy. And we also don't have milk powder for the children. We don't have any other basic necessities, so what kind of future can we see? As far as our future is concerned, we feel that we will starve and die. That is the situation.
The financial crisis has grounded at least half the area's trawler fleet, according to local officials, who are predicting a life-and-death situation there over the next 3 to 6 months. It's prompted weeks of protests just 25 miles away in the commercial capital of Colombo, where demonstrators have been demanding solutions and the removal of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Sri Lanka's financial minister told Reuters this month the government's first priority is to restore essentials such as fuel, and that it's seeking some aid from lenders like the International Monetary Fund for the country's economically vulnerable populations. Sri Lanka's fisheries and finance ministries did not immediately respond to requests for comment on specific measures being taken to help the fishing industry.
In Sudan's capital Khartoum, cooks are whipping up a batch of the popular dish asida. Volunteers like these ones say their work is more necessary than ever after Sudan spiraled further into economic crisis. One initiative is the Ramadan Iftar project, providing meals to vulnerable people who have largely come from outside the capital. Dureya Abdallah is one of the volunteers.
After the Sudanese revolution, we realized that volunteering is much needed in Sudan. I come here after 2 p.m. and help with preparing iftar meals for hospitals and dormitories where people from other regions stay.
The Ramadan Iftar project delivers around 1,200 meals a day. Nurse Al-Ri Mohammed has just taken a delivery. He says everyone is suffering in Sudan's economic conditions and that the iftar meals really help. Sudan's military officials staged a coup last year, plunging the country deeper into political and economic turmoil. The military says the coup was a necessary corrective measure. Since then, protests have taken place despite climbing temperatures, Ramadan fasts, and a security crackdown that has claimed the lives of 94 people and injured thousands.
Climate change is the existential challenge of our times. Singapore and New Zealand share similar perspectives on it. We need stronger cooperation amongst countries to protect the most vulnerable peoples and places on our planet. At the same time, we see opportunities for practical collaboration as we adopt low carbon and green technologies. This new pillar of cooperation reflects our shared commitment to implement the Paris Agreement and work together to seize growth economies in the green economy.
We also discussed opportunities for our countries to work together. We experienced the impacts of supply chain issues across COVID-19, but there are also opportunities for our businesses to partner in delivering exports and services into South and Southeast Asia in coming decades. I'm pleased that today our officials will officially begin work on supply chain dialogue to support increased supply chain cooperation. This is especially important at a time like this with global uncertainty around COVID and Ukraine.
Stellantis will suspend production at its Russian plant. In a Tuesday statement, the company blamed logistical difficulties and sanctions imposed on Moscow. The world's fourth largest automaker, home to brands like Peugeot, Citroën and Jeep, has just 1% of the country's car market. It co-owns a van-making plant with Mitsubishi in Kaluga, southeast of Moscow. The Japanese firm suspended production at the facility earlier this month. Stellantis had already stopped all exports and imports of vehicles with Russia after the start of the conflict in Ukraine in late February. It moved production to Europe and said it was freezing plans for more investments in the country. Van making in Kaluga was in place just for the local market. Stellantis is the latest Western company to quit Russia. Since February, many others have announced temporary shutdowns of factories or said they were leaving the country for good.